broadcasting to you from our North Catholic studios in Cranberry Township. For this episode on North Catholic Athletics, this is our state championship recap as we are back here on the North Catholic Athletics podcast. My name is Alex Brown.
And I'm Ryan Berry.
And together we're your hosts for this podcast.
Alex, let's get started with volleyball. State champions, Alex, they had a great year, a dominating year. They had some
really
faults at the beginning. They rebounded and just had a fantastic year from start to finish. They were just overly dominant the whole year. And let's talk about some of those big key wins that contributed to their successful season.
Oh, the Avonworth win, huge, coming in late in the season. And they had that tournament earlier in the year. You remember this, Ryan? Back in September.
Yeah.
When they lost to Camp Hill Trinity, but they ended up beating in the state final. They lost to them 0-3. And in articles that we've read and things that we've talked to other volleyball players about, and we'll probably ask Ally Feczko about this when we have her on, because we'll have her on in a couple minutes to ask her about her season. But in that, they had a lot of extraneous circumstances in that tournament. They really wasn't conducive to winning. But they were able to turn it around, Ryan, to losing 0-3 to them then and beating them 3-0 in the championship. What a turnaround.
Yeah, it is. And I think they just kept believing, even though everybody has bad games. And that was one of their worst games of the year, and they rebounded from it and just had an amazing performance to bounce back from that. I think one of the bigger wins was the Avonworth one, where they also won 3-2 as well, and they had some big wins, and they beat Avonworth in the WPIAL championship. So a bunch of moments led into the successful season, and this continued in state playoffs. They were down 2-0 in the state playoffs in the semifinal match. They came back to win 3-2. I mean, that's tough to do, Alex. It's one of the toughest things to do.
Yeah.
Being down 2-0, you have to win 3 straight sets
against a really good team.
There's no room for error, and they just, they believe that they lost 3-0 earlier in the year. They believe that they would come back. They're down 2-0 in the semifinals. They believe they can come back. I mean, if you have the right mindset and you have the talent to do it, then you can just I guess, be successful.
Absolutely. It's all about that belief, and we've talked to them. We've talked about this in almost every podcast that we've mentioned volleyball in. But it stuck out to us so much at the beginning of the year. It was the first day of school that we talked to. We sat down with Coach Fetter and a couple of the volleyball players, and we asked them about the team. What makes this team so special and so consistently successful? And they talked about how they all are a family. And we'll ask Allie about this in a minute. But family, that is shown so much throughout their playoff run.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I guess they believe in each other.
Yeah.
They trust in each other. So that just goes back to that family mantra and mindset that they have. And a successful season, the winning states being able to ring the bell as teams, seniors do when they win states, and it's just a fantastic season for them.
And they were able to put it together for the first time, really, getting that WPIAL championship and that state championship in the same year. And that's been something they've been struggling to get for a while.
Yep, and they're going to be dominant next year as well, Alex. They have a definitely good shot, and they have a lot of really good sophomores and juniors returning for next year. Alex Sepsic, Ally Feczko, as you know, and just a lot of talented players returning.
They really do, and they're going to be in a prime position next year to win again, to be a perennially successful team as they really are. And this will be the final time we ever mention girls volleyball for a while, maybe even this whole year. But we're going to miss them as they're a successful team. But before we do that, let's talk to Ally Feczko. We are here with North Catholic varsity volleyball player Junior Ally Feczko. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
First off, Ally, how awesome is it to be a 2-time state champion?
Oh, it's so amazing. I can't even explain it. I'm just so fortunate to have been on 2 state championship teams, and it's just a great feeling.
You really had a phenomenal year. You were named first team in Class 2A All-Star team. You also had 4 other teammates on the Class 2A All-Star team. But you also had the final kill in the state championship game. How are you going to be able to top this next year?
Oh, I don't know. It's going to be hard. There's a rumor that we might be moving up to 3A. So
really?
So that might be a new challenge that will come our way. But I think we're a really strong team, and most of our starters are returning. So I think we should have a chance to do well next year.
Coach Fetter's been a successful coach at North in her only 4-year tenure at North. What does she
really
mean to you as a coach?
She's been a huge part of our success. She's so supportive of all of us, and she really, she's there for us all the time, and she is just such a good coach that she expects so much from us, and we just she's just great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Walk us through what changed from the beginning of the year the year when you lost to Trinity 3-0 in that tournament in September to the end of the year when you beat them 3-0 in the biggest match of the season? What changed?
Yeah, so that trip that we had that weekend, that was a little rough. We had a few problems. Our hotel was kind of a mess. Like, we just had some, bad things that happened.
So bad circumstances.
Yeah. So it was just not a good weekend for us, and I feel like that served as a kind of like, it made us want to do better when we played them next time, because we knew that if we made it to the state playoffs, we would have the chance to play them again.
Yeah.
So that like gave us like a little like, I don't know the word, just like
Motivation.
Yeah. To make it to the state playoffs so we could play them again and show them what we could really do.
Well, we did some interviews earlier in the year with some other players. They described it was a kind of family bond on the team. Mm-hmm. How awesome was that bond been? How important was it to the success this year?
From the beginning of the season, we've been a family. Like, we would hang out outside of school and outside of practice, and just our bond is just so tight that it like transfers onto the court, and that's a huge part of of our success, because you need to trust each other and rely on each other and bring each other up when you're down, and that's, I'd say, most of why we were so good this year.
With volleyball being the team sport that it is, do you feel like it's more important the work you put in yourself individually, maybe outside of practice, or do you think it's more important the work you put in together as a team?
I think it's probably a good balance of both. You definitely need to push yourself outside of practice to work on things that just affect you personally.
Yeah.
But also, like, team bond is so important, and like the chemistry you have on the court is a huge part of success. So I feel like they're both pretty equally important.
Were there any moments throughout the season, like maybe it was beating Avonworth, that you thought, man, we could really win the state championship again this year?
Well, I know this is far down in the season, but when we had our semifinal game and we were down 0-2 and had to come back and win, that was the greatest feeling. I can't even explain it. So I know that was pretty late in the season, but that was a big point where I was like, we can do this. Like, we're unstoppable. It's going to be amazing. And then in our early games, it's hard to tell because some of the teams we played, we didn't have the best games against them, and it was hard to like get a grasp for where we like stood in the state rankings and stuff like that. So I would just say that semifinal game was the biggest like motivation for us.
When you talk about that semifinal game, down 0-2, what does Coach say to you once you get to that before that third set starts?
She was just like, "You guys can do this. Like, you put yourself in a hole, but you can get out of it." And for my freshman year, when we won states, we were in a hole like in the same situation. Yeah. So like we've done it before. We knew how to come out of it. It was just like we just had to fight, and we did. So. Besides
winning states, what other moments will you remember the most about this season?
Probably the PO game for our semifinal. That was definitely a huge part of it. And the WPIAL championship was a big deal too. To win back-to-back, that was awesome. Just those games are amazing.
Well, we appreciate you coming on the program, and we want to
you.
congratulate you again on a fantastic season.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You just heard from Ally Feczko, and what a great interview that was, Alex.
Really
as she recapped what a great season they had.
They really did. And now let's talk about football, right?
Yeah, football. They had a successful year as well. Unfortunately, lost in the state WPIAL championship. I don't know if that was a state quarterfinal or a state semifinal. I remember it counted as one of the states. I don't remember exactly which.
I think it's the
one
quarterfinal.
Counted, but,
I think it's the quarterfinal.
Yeah, they had a great year. They were undefeated up until the championship game, and it's just tough, especially against a very talented Central Valley team with some very good players and a couple of D1 commits.
It was a tough game, and they knew that going in. They didn't know going in that this is a powerhouse. This is a powerhouse opponent. I mean, this is the team that beat Aliquippa this year. Central Valley beat Aliquippa.
Who was the 4A?
Who won the 4A championship. So this is a powerhouse team for 3A, and they're moving up with North next year to 4A, which is going to definitely be different, as they're going to lose some players too, as North is. But it was close first quarter. It was I think it was like 21-7 after one because we got the kick return touchdown by Liam Straub. But then after that, the Central Valley started to pull away.
Yep, but let's look back at what happened this season, Alex.
Yes.
Of course, they didn't lose the game up until the championship game. It started off with some dominating performances for North.
It did. I mean, from the beginning, they didn't give up any points in their it was the first two games.
Yep.
First two games, then they had the Blackhawk game, which was probably one of the most fun games we've been to this season.
Yeah, definitely.
It
probably didn't go as the players that wanted it to go, but it was a great game and a big win against a good 4A team, Alex. So, I think that win actually helped propel them. Like, okay, we're not invincible. We need to focus if we want to make a run in WPIALs again. And they focused, and they won almost every game the rest of the year.
And that was a game where penalties in the second half, in the fourth quarter in particular, really wreaked havoc on North and almost caused them to lose that game if they didn't miss that field goal at the end of the game. But the penalties from then on out really got a lot better. The coaches really cracked down on the penalties. And we really never saw a problem like that the rest of the year. That was to that extreme, that was in a position for them to possibly lose a game because of them. And so, so that shows how they're able to
Yep, as we mentioned,
adjust.
almost every Trojan game day show was focused on the little things.
The little things,
not
yes.
penalties, not kicking balls out of bounds, not turning the ball over, and they got better every game as the year went on. And unfortunately, it didn't hold true in the championship game at Central Valley, but Central Valley is just a good team that's so hard to avoid in those games. But throughout the year, they avoided those turnovers. They got better with them game by game. They avoided the penalties. The extra points were made. And it was just, I guess, a game where it took it step by step, got better every game, and built the season brick by brick.
How about the seniors, I should say, this season?
Yep.
The seniors this season. There it is. But they really were fantastic, and we're gonna miss them here at North. We really are.
Yep. They'll be losing star quarterback Joey Prentice, who had a phenomenal year out.
He really did.
And they'll lose star wide receiver Kyle Topinski, who'll probably take his talents to Division I as well. Carson Laconey, who played the last couple games, they're gonna be missing out on him as well next year.
Yeah, Kyle Topinski. You said wide receiver. He played wide receiver.
Yep.
He played tight end. He played running back. He's great on defense too. They're going to miss Tyler Primrose, who's a real big leader on that line too. Andrew Stevens
as well.
Yeah, they're going to be missing some players.
Tyler Maziarz.
I
mean,
yes.
we don't want to.
We don't want to miss anybody.
Yeah.
But truly, all the seniors that they had this year really played a huge impact on the team.
Yep.
They really did, and they're all going to miss them next year. But I think that team next year, it's going to be a tough year going to 4A, transitioning to 4A. But I think it's going to be it should be a good jumping point for the team. It's going to be a good experience for them to play some tougher opponents. As we saw the regular season, they didn't play anybody that was near their level the whole regular season. Especially in conference.
Definitely not. But next year they're going to be having tough games every week.
Yes.
And so I think it'll be good for the team to get a lot more tougher competition. I think although they might not dominate as they had in past years, I think they're welcoming the challenge.
Absolutely. And with that, let's talk about the soccer season for both the boys and girls. Both losing in the state semifinals, but they both had phenomenal seasons.
Yeah,
Let's start with the girls.
We're going to talk about another successful season, Alex. Start with the girls. They had a great season as well. They fell short in WPIALs, and they fell just short in states as well. They've had great years. And let's look at some of those games that made it, I guess, were statement games during the year.
Well, the girls they beat Avonworth, who they ended up losing to in the WPIAL championship game. But Avonworth was such a tough opponent. Throughout the season, they lost to them at Avonworth, but then they beat them at home, and that was a huge win for them to set up as a statement win during the regular season. And then the playoffs, they really were dominant up till they faced Avonworth in the WPIAL.
Yeah, we got to broadcast a couple of their games this year,
Yes.
Alex, and they're led by some incredible seniors and juniors on that team. Jaden Sharpless, who's
D1.
Division I commander. She was the vocal leader on that team, and of course, she was probably the best player on the team. Their system was so good it ran through Jaden. They had set a lot of good leaders on this team, Alex.
And they missed Taya Dave for, I think it was about the whole regular season. And then she came back for the playoffs, similar to Carson Laconey for the boys football team. And in terms of how much of a role she played in terms of leadership on that team, because they missed her. They really did miss her throughout the season. And once she got back, she really cemented herself on that team, because it looked like she didn't skip a beat, even though she was out for a long time. She came in shape and ready to go, and she played a huge role in their playoff runs.
Yeah, but next year it looks like they're going to be all set for another run as well. Alex says they're returning some stars.
Really
Lauren
good team,
McDonald, goaltender Riley Coomer will be back next year as well, and she was the leader on this team as well.
Lots of shutouts this year for Riley. Lots of shutouts, and she really gave it all this year. She got hurt throughout late in the playoff run and the state run as well, but she toughed through it, and she had a phenomenal year as well. Lily Karsman will be on. Mackenzie de Blasio, another key sophomores this year that will be there for years to come on this team, and prime for success for the future as well, Ryan, as you just said. And let's talk about the boys. The boys really had some struggles in the regular season, but they found their game about a little over midway through the season, and then they're golden from there.
Yes, they did, Alex. They had some tough losses in the regular season, in games that they probably should have won, a couple games they lost. But then they refocused in the playoffs, and I give credit to Coach Ricardo for North Catholic. I mean, just incredible to turn that team around. They got focused in the playoffs, and they were the number 9 seed in the playoffs, Alex. And they made it to the championship game. That's unbelievable, Alex.
You don't hear that often.
Yeah,
you
and
never hear that.
They beat Ambridge. They beat the number 1 seed South Park until they finally lost to the dominant Quaker Valley in the playoffs. And Quaker Valley, I don't know how they weren't the 1 seed. They were just such a dominant team. But that's just how it turns out. And they had a great postseason run, North Catholic, and a good run in states as well.
In the states, as you said, that Ambridge win they had in the second round in states, that was huge. Because that was a huge win because that set them up again with the date with destiny with Quaker Valley. And it was a tough one against Quaker, but just didn't work out really.
Next year, I really believe it's going to be North's year at the state title because the Quaker Valley is graduating pretty much their whole entire starting roster.
They really are.
And North Catholic's returning a good amount of their leaders as well. Goaltender Devin Pascal, they're returning. They're recording a high score Ryan Chance, although they are losing Captain Dylan Greggs and Will Koonsman as well.
And those would be big misses, but you still had Devin Pascal in goal. You got a couple goalies, really. Lucas Gunther can play goal. He can put him anywhere on that field. He can play, and he can play well. And then you really got some good youth on that team, as you said, Ryan. But similar to how Avonworth was the kryptonite for the girls throughout the season, except that one game, Quaker really was a thorn in North Side for the boys throughout the whole year.
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't get tougher than that. You played them 4 times. 4 times, and they got better each time they played them. They got better. They really did. They got better each time they played them.
Yeah. As soon as I think they lost them 3-0, then 7-0, and then played them. It was a closer game in the championship game, and then in the states they played it really tight. They completely changed their whole identity to playing. They played a more defensive game, and without a couple bounces or breaks or Quaker, that game could have easily went into shootouts and overtime.
And as we said, as we recap the soccer seasons in totality, they all of them had really successful seasons. And when you look at it, even though you didn't come away with the championship, any of the states or WPIALs, you talk about the moments. Every one of these teams had moments this year where they were really something you can look back on and smile. Like the boys, they beat South Park in WPIALs with like under a couple minutes to go. And that was a huge win and a huge momentum booster for them to be able to continue that the rest of their WPIAL run and the state run, the momentum that they had. But when you play sports, we both know those moments is what you really look back on over the course of a year, those times you spent with teammates throughout the year rather than the championships, right?
Yep, definitely. Yep, both teams had successful years, and they're poised for a big run in next year, Alex. And now let's transition to hockey, Alex. This will be a quicker segment. We have an interview coming up with Captain Evan Robbins, but 5-2-1 we are right now, Alex. Looking to build on that in the coming weeks.
Well, let me ask you before we ask Evan Robbins. How do you feel the team's played so far this year? Like, what do you like? You're about halfway done. You got 2 big divisional games next week. How are you feeling?
I'm pretty happy with the record right now. 5-2-1. It should definitely be 6 wins or more with couple tough losses, but I think we've rebounded. As long as we stay disciplined and stay focused on the goal, we should be good. But 2 really important divisional matchups in the next weeks. One of those will be on North Catholic Sports Network with you broadcasting, Alex. Since you've been broadcasting, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What do you think the team needs to improve to be able to continue on this run that they have been on right now?
I think the team. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to overstep my bounds here, but you got. I think team defense, collectively team defense. Because there's the games you played against Fox Chapel and Moon earlier in the year. Those are the toughest games this year, and I'll ask Evan about those in a minute. We both will. But when you look at those games, the shots on goal were a lot. It was over 30 shots against in both of those games. And when you have over 30 shots against, it's gonna be tough to win those hockey games unless you get more shots than the other team does, or your goalie stand on their head. But it's so tough to do that when you get peppered with shots like that. And so if you play, I think collective team defense is what needs to improve throughout the course of the season. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I like that answer.
And
it's not just the defensemen; it's the forwards.
It is. It's a collective. It's a collective effort. Hockey team sport. You got to play like a team, and you got to play like a team defensively. And let's ask Evan about that here right now.
We are here with the North Catholic hockey team captain, senior Evan Robbins. Thank you for taking time to talk to us.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. About halfway through the season, Evan, how do you feel you guys have played so far?
I feel like it's good. It's a good start first half, I guess. But there's definitely a lot of work to do. We got some tough games coming up: Freeport, Kiski, Moon. A few games in the division. They're gonna be tough, but I think it's a good start for now.
Do you notice any difference in this year's team than in past years?
Yeah, I think this year there's a lot more buy-in. I think that the past couple years, well, mostly last year, I think there wasn't so much of that. But this year, I think there's a lot of buy-in. Everybody likes each other. Everybody's playing well, and I think it's translating.
And how awesome would it be to make a run at the Penn's Cup during your senior season?
Oh man, it's something. Honestly, it's something since I came here that I've dreamed about. I've always wanted to do, but it would really be special if we really made a run, especially with this group. I think we certainly can.
So as we look at how the season's gone so far, you guys won your first game against North Hills, and then you went on a little bit of a rocky patch from about the loss to Fox Chapel and then lost to Moon. But since then, you've really started to come together as a team and find your identity. What do you think was the catalyst to that?
I think we realized that, there's going to be no easy games, no matter who we play. And, we can't take anything lightly. And I think that once we started doing that, and then we started getting a buy-in, once we started to win, and it was really just, I think those two things that really got us going.
How important is being disciplined this year? I mean, it was a problem last year. How do you think that's been fixed so far this year?
I think it's good. It's super important. You can't win games on a penalty kill. Like, I think, Coach Hoffman says all the time, when we're 5-on-5, no one can play with us. And when we're taking penalties and being undisciplined, we're not playing 5-on-5, and we can't win that way.
So in your senior season, you've taken on the role of captain. How much has that meant to you to be able to be a leader for this team and really get it, as you said, how you really wanted to get this Penn's Cup in your senior season? How's being able to be named the captain really helped you be able to drive your team to get to that place?
Yeah, being named captain was definitely a very good start. It was definitely a very good kind of stepping stone for me. I think I have two also really good assistant captains, Tay Mellis and Brock Farley, who helped me a lot along the way. Shout out. Yeah, they helped me along the way. But but yeah, I mean, I think, I just knew what needed to happen. I knew I needed to be the leader and the voice, and I think that when that happened, I just took it on and knew the responsibilities that came with it, and knew that this team could really go far in the Penn's Cup, and that, hopefully we're going to be, celebrating one in February.
So as you mentioned a little bit earlier, looking at the next two games, big games, Moon and Chartiers Valley. The game will be on the North Catholic Sports Network on Tuesday. How important are these games to be able to, for seeding in divisional race, to get into the playoff picture?
They're huge. They take the top 8 by points. So, being first is great, but at the same time you got to get that seeding, and you got to get those points to get that seeding going into the Penn's Cup playoffs. So yeah, these next two games are huge, and if we can get a big lead in the division, that's big for playoffs.
And my final question is, what is it like to play with the great Ryan Berry?
It's fun, man. He's a great player. He honestly he knows where to go. He definitely is always around the net and making plays happen. So it is fun playing with Connor.
Connor too, yeah.
Yeah,
Connor
and Ryan.
Yeah.
Connor and Ryan.
Yeah.
Connor and Ryan.
Yeah,
Ryan,
he wasn't even talking about
you.
He was just talking about Connor.
I knew who I was talking about. I get him confused all the time. Ryan's like that. Connor's my D partner. He's always. They're both really good. They're both making good plays. So they're both some huge additions.
Oh, we really appreciate you coming on. Hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
And you heard from Evan Robbins. What a great interview that was, Alex. I know we've had a lot of good interviews on this podcast. So every interview has been great this year, Alex.
It really has been. We'll be interviewing the basketball teams, both the boys and girls, next week. and those will be posted online. It'll be on video, so you'll be able to see those on YouTube anywhere. It should be on the website as well, and those will be all over the place next week as we got basketball season coming up.
Yep, Alex, and remember, we are your one-stop podcast for everything North Catholic athletics.